Hi there, I'm Kimile.
And I'm Gretchen. Welcome to Starting Over Podcast. Happy to have you here. In case you're wondering, Kimile is she is a,
You're telling on me.
I am. I'm proud of you.
I'm 33 years behind the desk helping people counseling. That's what I do.
Yeah, she's a fantastic counselor. She's an author of a book.
Thank you.
And so subjects that we talk about with y'all are things that we know that people are going through.
Oh, lots of relationship stuff, right?
Lots. And so I was wondering, Kimile, I know that we probably all had experience along this subject to whatever degree, I don't know. How often do people use sex as either a punishment or a bribe in a relationship?
A lot. It's interesting because couples will tend to fight, and they'll pick an area like if the bedroom's the war room, or it's about the kids, or it's about money. But if they pick the sex life as the war room, then it turns into a game and manipulation.
Like how? What's going on?
So if you are in a healthy relationship, it's a give and take. If you want it, great. If your partner's wants to accommodate you, fine. But it's out of love and concern, and it's loving and sweet. But if it's if you're withholding with your partner, for example, women tend to withhold more than men. So if you withhold with your partner, then men feel resentful and angry. And the number one reason for an affair is revenge. So what's an affair about? Getting sex outside the marriage, usually. And or talking, but I would say a true affair is carnal knowledge of somebody else outside of the relationship. But it's kind of like, I'm going to do this at you. So that's what I'm saying. If you're going to fight over something other than using sex as a punishment or a reward system. Because if you use it as punishment, typically people end up hurting each other with sex. Sex becomes a weapon. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Yeah.
And that really just means, you tell me if I'm wrong, but that just really means you don't know how to communicate.
That's right. Well, and or it's you don't know how to communicate your needs, but it's also a little sadistic. It's a way of torturing each other. I mean, a lot of people that use sex for weapons are very jealous people. They've been betrayed and they feel jealous because they've been hurt like that. When sex is a weapon, it's like if money's a weapon. You don't have it, or they withhold it from you. So
Right.
it's used as a weapon to hurt each other. And a lot of women will withhold sex to test their men. Prove it. You let me prove it. Suffer. You're not going to get any. So it's a form of abuse in a way.
But on the flip side, so if women primarily, not all, and certainly not just women, but if women primarily are withholding sex, are men withholding emotional things?
There's usually a tit for tat there. Yeah. So it's something that's going on. But I'm going to take this away from you. I'm not going to give you what you really want, is what I typically hear in those situations. And men would want more intimacy and more connection. So they're going to withhold themselves from their partner as a way to punish him.
Okay, and how do the men punish the women?
Financially or emotionally, or they lack the ability to communicate, or they're not intimate. They will stonewall. They will be quiet. They will bully. They will play games, or they'll not come home. They'll be dismissive. So it's a domination game usually. Yeah. And when it starts going into this kind of realm, it can get pretty nasty, pretty ugly.
Because I think at that point you've lost a connection of feeling. Now it becomes a game of who can hurt the other one.
That's right.
More than how I'm already hurt, or how he's already hurt, or she's already hurt. So when people get to that stage, you literally you've lost the track or the insight of what the marriage really is, or what the relationship really is.
Well, it's not kind and loving. It's kind of jabby. So, and look, I think men, to get even with their wives, they'll do porn. They'll look at porn. They'll. It's like it's better than having an affair, but in a way, that's also taking their affection away from their wife and doing that. And some women care or they don't care, but it's still, I'm going to force you to have to deal with yourself in a certain way. And the men do the same thing. I'm not going to be there for you, so I'm going to force you have to take care of yourself some other way, emotionally. But when sex is turned on that person, it feels cruel. It's kind of like you just think of wanting a hug, or some sort of connection, and you're just not going to get that. That's pretty mean,
Yeah, especially something so
intimate,
sacred and intimate, and really the epitome of the physical part of a relationship, and yet I think as far as like porn, it seems to be at times with some, let me just preface all of that, that there seems to be a justification of why porn is involved.
Yeah.
And I was just having this conversation with my sweetheart about, he was basically saying, like, I've just never been attracted to anything with porn. It's just never been a temptation for me. I don't have any, desire. I'm not attracted to that. And we kind of just went down this conversation, and he said, it was explained to me one time from an older gentleman. He was, at the time, Aaron was younger, but this guy was older than Aaron. And he said, most of the time when there's infidelity or things like porn, or when people, do swinger type situations, it's all about their own personal satisfaction. Gratification. It has nothing to do with the relationship, has nothing to do with my partner and I love you. It has everything to do with how can I feel good.
Yes.
How can I feel good quickly and in the moment, and that's all I care about.
Yep.
Which, it's well known that people that are into porn are basically fantasizing about something that's not real.
Oh, yeah. But see, it's transactional. So a person that is used to looking at porn and gratifying themselves, that's the relationship they're in. That's how they pleasure themselves. So it is about themselves, right? But it's also not real, because that person on the other side of the phone or wherever you're looking at porn. A lot of kids find porn on the phone nowadays.
Yeah.
It's sad, it's disturbing. But it really isn't about pleasing anybody or having any sort of exchange of energy. It's just about the carnal act of self-gratification.
And so what happens, I think, with women is, let's say her significant other is into porn. Sometimes the excuse from the man is, well, it doesn't mean anything. I don't know these people. But the way the women interpret or can interpret it is, this is personal because it does affect me because we are not intimate.
Well, and maybe this is TMI, but look, if a guy's used to getting off with his hand, okay, he's not likely going to be able to get off sexually with her, having intercourse, because you're training your body on how to satisfy yourself. Yeah, I had a client who all she could get off on was a vibrator. And a man cannot perform that kind of quick action like a vibrator, right? And so she would have her partners use a vibrator to get her off, and that was not satisfying to the man because he wants to be able to satisfy her with himself. So there is again, when you're substituting yourself for something else, that becomes a problem. And what people don't realize is sex and touch is intimate. Into me, you see. You want to be the one they're looking at, thinking about, turning them on, aroused by. That's the goal of intimacy, right? But you're right. If it's just a transactional, or they're looking at porn or doing the porn, it's just, again, it's not meaningful.
It's like this self-gratifying, action of it.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, really, that's what porn was designed for anyway.
Well,
because
and
you don't know these people.
Yeah.
And
so it really does mess with your brain. It messes with your ability to relate and be in a relationship, because it isn't real. So it's not.
Yeah, which if you
drug.
kind of go down the road of some social media and things, on the internet or whatever, it's kind of all geared to pull ourselves away from reality.
That's right. It's a great distraction.
And to have real conversations, real places to I mean, I know I've had times that I'll just be like, I just need to talk to you face to face.
Yes.
Or, I just need to be able to see you when I talk, or I just want to be able to hold your arm or something. I want that connection.
Physical connection.
Right. And we know this, y'all. You don't understand the feelings behind a text sometimes.
Right.
It's void of emotions because it's just words.
Yeah.
That you don't know where it's coming from. And so I think sometimes if we're talking about withholding, we're talking about withholding intimacy, and whatever that means to you. It can mean words of affirmation, or it can mean service. It can mean anything. But anytime that there's a withhold, it's usually because somebody is really hurt.
Or it's a punishment.
And it's a punishment.
Yeah. Well, and what you notice is all of this says, I'm taking myself emotionally away from you. When you want to be face-to-face with your partner, or whatever. What you're looking for is an emotional connection.
Yeah.
So, and if you're having non-emotional sex, right, that's not gratifying ultimately for both people. But a lot of people don't know how to communicate anymore. They don't know how to eye contact. They're on their phones, and people are really not, the skill set of being in interrelational communication is in breakdown. So these, especially kids nowadays, they just don't know how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much true.
Yeah.
And we were even having the conversation. We were talking prior to filming about people that are into other partners, like swingers
Yes.
type stuff.
Yeah.
And they literally, I mean, what I was saying to Kimile is, I don't understand that, because as humans, we do have a connection with somebody else.
Yes.
And so when you have multiple sex partners that you go home and you live with one of them, and, I don't understand how that is normal or how that is normalized, because at some point I would think that you would have an emotional letdown or a hurtful situation because your partner is not into you, the intimacy.
You're right. And I've had this conversation with a couple of clients that are swingers, and I was curious. I said, tell me how this is a good idea. How did you come to be able to have sex with other people in front of each other? Like, how is that gratifying for you? And it was almost as if it's like playing tennis. So I know that sounds pretty cavalier, but it turns into a sport. So it's not even about intimacy anymore. They're at a place in their relationship where they're roommates or they're together for the money and they're bored with each other. So it's like, well, let's just go play in this arena. But it isn't real. It's not like they want the same people all the time. They want different people. But that's how they're maintaining a connection. But it is a sport.
That's crazy.
I know, but people do have sex for sport. That's what it was. And again, it's not for most people. Most people, it's a private, sacred space that you create. And I think the most sacred moments are when you're with someone like that and you're both wanting to pleasure each other. That is the most gratifying sex, I think, in the world.
I think that's how it's meant to be.
Me too.
Because I think when even if you don't have sex, so to say, but you have an intimate connection, whether you're holding each other or you're talking or you're looking at each other or you're kissing each other, you can be so close that, that alone, that connection alone makes you so committed.
And that could be enough. You may not have to have sex.
Right. Which I wonder, because I think about people sometimes that if they don't have that initial intimacy in their relationships, then they never understand really what sex is.
That's
because
right.
if you're only looking for the sex and you don't have that intimacy,
And yes,
you're never satisfied, because it's a matter of that person felt great, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you're not in a realm where you're trying to just love and be there for each other.
Exactly. Well, and without that true intimacy and caring how that person's feeling or what they're going through and wanting the experience to be gratifying for both sides, it's not going to be. But this is where relationships break down around sex, because it is about one person typically getting off, and then maybe the spouse isn't getting off. Typically the male gets off, the woman doesn't. And so why do I want to keep doing that if I'm not going to enjoy myself, right? And then not having the conversations and just, all right, hurry up and get it over with. Again, this is just transactional at some point. It's not real intimate. Where do you connect if it's not when you're naked and in the bedroom, right?
Right. And I think, I don't know, I could be completely wrong, and you'll tell me if I am. But
Probably won't.
In a relationship, though, when you get to the place, and women are known for this, it doesn't mean it's every woman, and it doesn't mean it doesn't happen to men, but women tend to fake to get it over with because she's not enjoying it, and it's all about him. It's all about him. So how do you help people know how to get to a place where it's about them?
Well, they have to start over. And what I do with some couples, I say, okay, you're going to start over. No sex. You're going to hold hands. You're going to start over like you were a teenager. But and this is interesting now that we're in the phone era. There's not really any real connection before they get together. People would fall in love and maybe they'd have to write letters, and they'd wait weeks or months for the communication, right? Now it's so instantaneous. You can text something. There's no anticipation. It's just get together and then the act is happening. But there has to be a way you start over. And so you deprive yourself of that. It's kind of like you go on a sex diet And the goal is to create intimacy, not sex. And so you start with holding hands, eye contact, sharing intimate details. There's a whole list of things that I have people go through. And what there is kind of a discovery of what really turns that other person on, not just sexually, what lights them up. Right. Why would they want to continue in life with you? But again, nobody talks about the real intimacies of communication anymore, and that's what really needs to happen. And when you can really talk about things and be honest, like I had a 65-year-old woman who never had an orgasm with her husband, and that was a big withhold, and she was so resentful, so angry because he still wanted sex, and he thought he was, King Kong, and I'm so good at this, and she, and she'd lied to him all those years, and she'd pretended that she had enjoyed it all those years, and she was just bitter and angry, and I said, what is it you're hiding from him? What are you mad at? And she admitted to me she'd never climaxed with him. And I said, okay, time to tell the truth. Oh, I can't. I mean, Kimile, it's been 50 years. He's going to kill him. It's going to crush him. Well, it's ruining your marriage. She told him. And it did. He was aghast. Like, how did you not tell me? Right. Why would you go on and let me think this? And again, her childhood, we all got it worked out, right? But now it's she finally gets a vote in this, and she says, when I want to, I will. When I don't, I won't. And he's learning how to please her without intercourse, which is and because she has a trauma, intercourse is not going to be the way she has a good time. So that you just communication's the glue, guys. If you can start communicating and getting real. Yeah. It's the magic.
And Kimile and I, we've shared this with each other. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but sometimes what happens with young kids, especially in religious circumstances, it's don't have sex before marriage. Yeah. Okay, now you're of the age to get married. Hurry up and get married. Yeah. So you don't mess up, right? Yeah. Well, they end up they end up marrying somebody they don't really know
to have sex.
Yeah. Now they're really young, and we know that maturity continues through their 20s. Sure. It's not like you're 21 and just because you're of age, you're ready to handle life. And we know that men mature slower than women. True. So what happens is sometimes you outgrow each other, or you go in different directions because you married really young. Yes. Probably didn't have direction from a professional or something about what to expect in an intimate relationship in marriage. Yes. And so the woman ends up being quiet, and the guy thinks this is how it's supposed to be, and their whole marriage is set up that way. Yeah. So she hates it. She doesn't want to be around it. She doesn't, she avoids it. And he's like, I got to beg for it.
Yeah. And I hate begging. And then he's mad at her. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so their whole dynamic, if it could have started from the very get-go. Yes. Which is why I think everybody needs to come see Kimile.
Oh, thank you, honey. But
no, I'm just saying, especially if you're young and you're just going to get married.
I do a lot of premarital counseling.
You need to have somebody other than your embarrassing mom or dad spill it out on what it's like.
That's right. Well, and it's got to be part of it's love making. So it's foreplay all day with cute notes and sweet things. You want to make sure it's part of the relationship. It isn't just like an act of, okay, quick, get her done, and then move on.
Like a duty.
Right. Mm-hmm. You want it to be both people are enjoying themselves. And if you're not, figure out how to make that happen.
You know what I think, too? If you live with your partner, you have to find ways that you would be excited to hear from them as if you didn't. Yeah. And I'll give you a case in point. My sweetheart, we don't live together. I look forward to every morning his good morning text. Even if it's just he sends me a cup of coffee emoji, it reminds me he's thinking of me, or he's starting his day thinking of me. Okay, so even if you're in a marriage or in a relationship and you live in the same house, you still can do those little things that reminds, and that's the foreplay that Kimile's talking about. Right. All of that stuff, guys, matters. That adds up. Oh, yeah. It so adds up. But here's the trick, too. Don't do things and she recognizes, wait a second, you're just doing that because you want sex. It has to be genuine. Yeah. It really does. Or it becomes, a guy can get frustrated. He's like, look, I'm trying. Yeah. But the girl can look at him and be like, well, okay, but I know why you're doing it. What if he's not doing it for that reason? What if he really does care? What if he really does want to try and show something?
Yeah. And again, even if he is doing it for that reason, okay, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's like, of course he wants to be intimate with you. But it can't just be, I'm going to be nice to get some. He needs to be able to be nice and be, considerate and do emotional foreplay prior to the act. there's so many books out there that talk about this, really how to connect a bond with your partner. But that's a lot of it, is you've got to be intimate before the act.
Do you hear the siren?
Oh, man, our sirens are blowing. You think we're outside, we're not.
Oh, anyway. Hey, we appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you, if you want to get a hold of us, you can go to startingovercommunications.com and leave us a message there. But this is a subject that it's involved in every relationship. Yes. I don't care if you're married or not. Whether you're having sex or not, it is just a part of intimacy. I think we got to go with this.
Because the sirens outside, we best go.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.